Could you please tell us how you first got attracted to NTL and what year was that? Who were the people that were involved, and anything else you want to tell about when
Okay.
you
Well, I'm really fortunate because
first
I was
got
most part of
involved?
NTL in the great days when it was becoming an institution. When I joined, I was like the second generation of NTLers, with the founders group preceding me. I was in I got connected to NTL through Bob Tannenbaum, who came to. I was an engineering student in 1966. No, 1961 at Northwestern, and Tannenbaum came to my industrial engineering class to give a speech. And I was attracted to him immediately. We had a connection. There was a reception for Bob afterward. And at the reception, I said, what's the chances, just kind of blurted out, what's the chances of coming out to California and working with you? At the time, I was on my way to the University of Wisconsin to study for a PhD program in psychology. And I was unhappy with them because I was accepted for social. And the preceding winter, I asked them, could I switch over to clinical? And I was refused on the grounds that my stipend was for social psychology. So when Bob said, let's explore that, I need a research assistant, I said, terrific. And I made a last minute application to the psychology department at UCLA and was accepted into the #1 clinical program in the world. I'm sure that Tannenbaum greased the skids on that one. And I came to California. I drove out in September in my Edsel. There I was introduced to the other NTLers that were on the faculty at the then Graduate School of Business. There was Jerry Rizel, there was Frank Tallman was associated. There were many founding, and my favorite was Jim Clark, in addition to Tannenbaum. And that September, I went to my first tea group. They did, the school had a program at Lake Arrowhead, they called sensitivity training for executives. So I went there and I was a participant in a tea group run by Irv Weschler. Tannenbaum, Weschler, and Masrick had just published the first major book on tea groups for executives. So there I was with Irv Weschler, and I had that in 10 weeks, the best food I could. I was a starving student. There we ate steaks. So we go up for a weekend in the front end, a weekend 10 weeks later, and in between there were three 3-hour sessions on campus, tea group sessions. And it was fabulous. From there, I continued in my clinical psychology studies. I started a Jungian analysis with a marvelous analyst, and I worked closely with Tannenbaum and Jim Clark, with Jim in particular doing research. So we, by the time I got to NTL in 1966, and I'll tell you about that, I had 3 publications in JABS. Research publications. I did my dissertation on self-disclosure amongst tea group trainers. So I was just ready for NTL, and I had applied and was given a stipend in NTL's 8-week-long applied behavioral science intern program in Bethel. And it was a feast for me. I had such great experiences there. And it was organization development, it was leading groups, it was group theory. Always at that time, the NTL people, myself included, always were involved in theory building, research, had academic affiliations, most of them. And in addition to trying to save the world 10 people at a time. For the 2 weeks of my...
So you stayed 8 weeks in Bethel?
It was 8 week.
You stayed eight weeks in
This was the way you get into the network. This is how you became a member. You go there, and it was for PhDs, MDs, and clinical social workers were included. They had a NIH grant that funded the interns, and at the conclusion of the intern program, you were a member. So I became a member at the end of that intern program in 1966. The last 2 weeks of the program is co-training with an established trainer in a T group, a human interaction lab. 2 weeks residential. Participants came from all over the country, the world, to Bethel. That was the Mecca. And it was wonderful. And I was assigned to Dick Beckhard, who was a fellow of NTL and the consultant's consultant. Dick, and he had it was just a great experience. And I was staying, I was provided a cabin on a lake. I'm trying to remember the name. I forget the name of the lake, but a little lake, and the cabin had its own boat, and another NTL intern, David Peters, who I'll just for color, he started after about 3 weeks. He hooked up with with one of the state police's wife, so, and he was having an affair with her. He had a Porsche, and that cop and David Peters were racing up that highway, chasing each other. It was really something. So at the conclusion of the 8 weeks, Lee Bradford came and offered me a job. He wanted me to go join the central office staff. And I committed to an assistant professorship at UCLA for a year. And I said I accepted it as of 1967. So July 1967, I arrived at Bethel to start my full-time employment on the central office staff. My first assignment was the liaison to the intern program, the 8-week program. And I joined the staff that year, and the staff was Will Schutz, who was the guru of Esalen, Barry Oshry, conflict management, and Warren Bettis, who eventually became best friends with me, and I best friends with him. And so I co-led a group with Barry, and Will and Warren had their groups, and it was explosive up there because this is the 60s. Everyone's experimenting. In week 2 of the intern program, 2 of the interns exchanged spouses. Craig Lundberg from Sweden and Hal Kellner from Boston. So now Hal's with this tall blonde lady, and Craig is with this very attractive Jewish Boston accented lady. It was really, and everybody else in Bethel was on edge because what the hell is going on in Bethel? What is going on in these T groups? So that was, I'll stop for a moment. I know that you wanted to but I had this prepared. I wanted to set the scene for now. I moved to Washington, D.C., joined the central office staff. I'm housed with Charlie Seashore, and I share a little suite in the NEA building across the hall from Jerry Harvey and Warner Burke. And down the hall are the Kurt and Dorothy Miles. And this was just everybody you'd want to learn with and from were there. And in those days, it was tea groups round the clock anyway. Edie Seashore was looking out for my wife. So Charlie and Edie would come over. We would drink in the afternoons after work and scream and shout and make each other more whole if we could. And if we couldn't, we would go down trying. It was just a wild period for me. And my assignment was, they made me director of intern training and program director in organization studies. That was my assignment, although I didn't get much help on what I was supposed to do. And which I didn't mind, because it was just all these opportunities to staff and learn and work. So 1968 and 1969, I oversaw the selection of the interns for the 8-week program in Bethel. And I also, and I worked on projects. I would get leads, and either I would staff the lead or I would find somebody to staff it. And it was, I worked like crazy and never had a better time or was treated better. So the other thing that you do in Bethel at that time, and you do in Washington as well, is you have to play golf. That was the way you got socialized into NTL. Leland was a very competitive golfer, and Charlie was a decent golfer, and Jerry was a very good golfer, Jerry Harvey, and Leland, and I was the worst golfer, because I only played golf for fun and for the adventure of it all. I could hit the ball a mile, but then we had to send out the dogs to find it, because nobody knew which was going in. Hold on for a second. I just blurred. I have to go on and off camera. I'll be right back with you.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, I got that one. I just have to now. Okay, here I am.
Okay, you're back now. You're back now.
Without a blur. So living in Washington was wonderful. Working hard, playing golf, giving speeches, presentations, working. I had a project at the United Nations. I had another one with the Christian Brothers that I was able to subsequently write up and publish in Jabs. For that one, they were going through Vatican II was had just transpired, and the order was really having growing pains to liberalize itself, with older members being disoriented and disenfranchised with the newfangled stuff that was coming into the Catholic religion, like guitars instead of organs. And I created a laboratory for them, an organization aimed at organization change, and with I brought Bob Tannenbaum in for that. We did it in I think Baltimore area, and it was called the Baltimore Provincial, and he worked with the elders, and I worked with the priests or the brothers, the teaching brothers, and we brought in a doctoral student from UCLA, Ken Beal, to work with the novitiates. And we would then have meetings where we brought them together to talk about the issues, listed it on newsprint like you're supposed to. It was so from the United Nations to the Christian Brothers to Guatemala and the Peace Corps, I had projects going, and I learned so much. I was always learning, and that was what NTL meant to me in this, and it did for so long. By 1969, my head was abuzz. I had learned too much. I needed to write it down, and I had accepted the NTL job for 2 years. At that time, Leland was retiring, and Warren Bennis had accepted the job. At the time, Warren had been provost at SUNY Buffalo, and he was a very golden character. And he had accepted the job, and but he had stipulated some conditions that the board hadn't been able to fulfill, and he declined the job, and Vlad Dupre took the job. At the last minute, they were able to recruit Vlad to take the job. My last assignment for NTL was again in Bethel, leading the intern program for 8 weeks. Again, at the end of the program, the last 2 weeks, the intern staff a human interaction lab, and in that and one day, I'll give you just a quick vignette of because it's such a sweet story. One day in that lab, an intern, assistant professor from University of Cincinnati at that time, Brendan Reddy, who eventually became the head of the department at the University of Cincinnati, and wrote books on group theory and practice, came to me. He says, who was paired with Abraham Maslow. He said, Abe won't let me talk in the group. I said, huh? He said, yeah, when I talk, he shuts me off or he cuts me off and he goes on. I said, I'll talk to Abe. So I said, Abe, when you're finished with your lunch, would you take a little walk with me? And we took a walk, and I said, Abe, Brendan says you won't let him talk. He says, that's right. I said, well, you realize that the purpose of the co-training experience is for him to make interventions and you to critique him after the lab, help him to get a little bit better. He says, the guy bores me. I said, hey, he said, I'd much rather hear myself talk. And I threw up my hands. I went back to Brett and said, I think you're out of luck on this one.
Oh, how funny, how funny. Yeah.
But NTL was fabulous for me because I got to work with and associate and meet with and go to a laboratory was 3 days of preparation planning before the participants show up. And then when the participants have free time, we're in there talking with each other and engaging. So, but I worked with everyone, just everyone. And those associations and friendships carried out through my whole career up until now, because None of the guys are around. So I went back. Should I continue?
Oh, please do. This is so fascinating.
I went back.
Please do.
I went back to UCLA to become a tenure track professor and write. But when I went back there, whereas it had been the mecca for T groups, and it still was, with about 10 full-time faculty who could run T groups and were teaching those each semester, the quality of working life people had centered themselves at UCLA. And that I was immediately attracted to that group and that movement, which kind of combined my engineering and my clinical in a more dynamic way of moving and trying to move institutions. And at the time, I was able to publish an article that won the award for the best article in the Harvard Business Review, titled we titled it Student Activism as a Resource for Corporate Planning and Development. And of course, they renamed the article something that even though that was the article appeared with, I never, I can't even remember the name, but I said, so that I was more on an OD track, but I brought with me to UCLA a 4-week summer training program that I invented with Bob Tannenbaum, the Training of Trainers program. So where the intern program was for OD and education and T group trainer learning, we were just 4 weeks of T group trainer learning at UCLA. And we had that called Program in Organization in Leadership for Organizations. And we ran that program for 2 or 3 years for 4 weeks each summer. So
was that part of, I staffed a lab for UCLA at Ojai.
yeah.
Was that part of the Ojai experience?
Well, UCLA executive education, which is not management education, but the executive education of the Institute for Education, they had the Ojai training program, and UCLA faculty often were trainers in that program. Chuck Ferguson in particular really used to like going to Ojai. I did it a couple of times, and it was a 1 week
Right.
So at UCLA, I would go back to Bethel every couple of years, and my last time I had gone back to Bethel was to Dino, a human interaction lab of 4 or 5 groups, was 1980. But then the last time I went to Bethel was in 2005, when my new wife of then 9 years was going to take, 7 years, was going to take enrolled as a participant in a human interaction lab. And she's my current wife too. And so she went there, and Charlie Seashore and I spent that week playing golf together. And on the 3rd day that we were playing golf, at one point I said, it's interesting. I'm thinking back, and I think, I didn't have a supervisor, but I thought that you were my mentor. He says, not only was I your mentor, but I was your supervisor too. So I found out 30 years later that Charlie had been my boss. But that was the milieu. That was the milieu in central office. That we.
Oh,
It was so collaborative, so participative. Even Lee Bradford, when he really wanted to put his foot down, he would say something like, "Now all of us have we all have one vote, but I want to cast my very strong vote for." Then we knew that was
hear
okay.
that voice going, huh? Yeah, yeah, right. Well, I might have been the overall dean when your wife was there then, because I was the overall dean in Bethel for about 20 years. So I might have even known her. That would have been fun.
How
So,
about that?
yeah. So what year did you say was the last year that you went to Bethel?
I think 2005. And I was,
Right. So how have you
excuse
been
me,
involved with NT?
I'm blurring again. It is my transmission here. I'm going to leave just for a second more. I'm so sorry. I have
Okay.
to do this. Here I am.
Yeah, you're back.
I am.
So do you have any other memories of the early days that you want to share with us? Because, some of our newer members, they have no knowledge of what you're talking about.
I,
And
I,
so it's
I
really
had guessed that.
valuable.
I had guessed that this was a different era. The last NTL, I recently, I'm just new with NTL again, a couple of months, but but the last experience I had with NTL was a disappointing one for me. I had published a book uh, that was aimed at real, a deep change for the country and for management, called "Get Rid of the Performance Review."
Oh, yeah, I saw
And
that.
and I published it after having a very successful article in full page in the Wall Street Journal. And it was a topic I felt very passionately about. And there was some conference in 2007. I forget the title of the conference, but I arranged with the publisher to bring 100 books to give away. And they sent them there directly, and I gave them away, but I didn't get any traction from people. The book was very successful, and it's had tremendous impact, not as much as I would like. I've never changed the world, even though that's what I wanted to do, to participate in doing, in humanizing the work environment. And in fact, what my UCLA website, it says Culbert's out to make the world of work fit for human consumption. But I didn't get much, I didn't get traction. I didn't get connection with people. It was a different group of people. I probably approached them incorrectly, but they got their free book, but I didn't, nothing much came of that experience, and that kind of soured me. It wasn't, I, it was very disappointing for me and disheartening. And now,
So can I order that book online now?
oh, you can
Is it still?
order it. I'll be glad to send you a copy. But yes, you could. You could. Amazon be glad to send it to you faster than I could get you.
Oh, good. I'd love to have a copy. Okay, I'll go on Amazon and get it. Yeah. So but
And
I'm
I'm gonna,
sorry that was a
I'm gonna, I'm gonna send
yeah.
you a copy of another book, the book that I feel most passionately about. I've published, I've authored 8 published books. And
Oh
my
my
last one talks about my NTL experience very positively and the
um,
quality of
uh,
working life. And that's
what's
called
the name of it? What's the name of it?
Good People, Bad Managers.
Oh, okay.
How work culture corrupts good intentions. And
Okay.
it's about
Good.
it's about, it's my journey in trying to change organizations and my conclusions that I've come to, because at the age of 84, I have to admit that this is the winter of my years, even though I've now spent over 50 years as a full-time faculty member at UCLA.
You and I are the same age.
You and I are the same age?
I don't know about you. It's a fine age for me. I hope it is for you. Yep.
Oh,
I'm 84. You said you was 84? I thought
yeah,
I was,
all
I
of
thought
us
I was
can
the
do
oldest
that,
person
yes.
living.
No, I feel like I can't, I feel like a young guy's trapped in an old person's body. The mind is cooking, but the body is getting more and more limited, and it bothers me.
Well, yeah, it does, doesn't it? But you're still teaching, right? You're still at the university?
I am still, you know how you're supposed to put at the bottom of your Zoom, your pronouns, him,
Oh, yeah.
his. I put down him, his, and trouble.
So well, I'll see, you're still being true to yourself. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, these guys don't get it, and they keep
So,
making it worse. And at one point, I just, uh, in order to get my stature recognized in the School of Management, like it is over the rest of the campus, I filed a grievance and prevailed.
and what happened?
They promoted the hell out and gave me a lot more money.
Oh, that's funny. They got more money. That sounds really funny. Yeah. So,
But
well,
if you clips,
so you haven't been very active in NTL for a while?
no, I just not until about a month or 2 ago.
Oh, okay.
And I'm
Well,
still
I
not
do
very active.
hope that you're planning to come. Uh, the celebration, of course, is virtual. So I do hope you'll register for that, because I think
I'm
it's going to
already
be.
registered
You already registered?
of course, right
Oh,
away.
good for you. Good for you. Good for you. Okay, so do you have any other memories? I don't care whether they're early, middle, or late. I know I'm kind of a rebel too. So do you have any other significant memories? Well, all of our memories are significant, that you'd be willing to share with us.
Well, I think the Abraham Maslow story stands out. Carl Rogers, I had a lot of interactions with him, and he got to, I remember him pretty well. I used to say, though, that he wrote the theories and Tannenbaum lived them. What was best for me, what was very, very positive for me, was Charlie Seashore and how he taught me to deal with stress. And that to me is vivid in my life and how I conduct myself. And he taught me by example, for sure. And I think some words too, that to see the humor in life and to recognize that, to take the pressure off. One day I was just fuming. I had sent a guy, I I had a consultant that was supposed to go to Bethel, Maine, and he calls me from Bethel, Pennsylvania, saying, "Where is this place?" And I and I imploded. And Charlie made 7 machine gun-like rapid fire jokes about that, and that's when I learned how to sleep at night.
Charlie said to me one time,
Oh, Barbara, you're breaking up on me now.
In his presence, he said, "Why do you hate me? I never tried me well because I am such fall into. Why do you hate me? I never tried to help you." So I just think that, and I think, why am I trying to help this person? Why am I? They are competent and they do not need me to interfere. So I have fond memories of Charlie too. He was really
I love
influenced.
Evie.
He really influenced me.
I loved Evie. We vacationed together in Fort de Marmy, where her parents had a summer residence. It's just, I had my memories of NTL and what I took from NTL and the way I've practiced my science as value directed science. It is not, I'm not out to help everybody. I'm out to help the good guys get better. One thing that I feel frustrated about is that, again, I don't know how many people read it, but I, in addition to my, the book I mentioned, Good People, Bad Managers, I wrote up my methodology that I've evolved over, many, many years. That's, I think, original and valid in a JABS article on trans-organization practice and muckracking. And I consider myself a muckracker. I've published in Wall Street Journal, New York Times. I want to get to the people and show them what is erroneous in their reasoning that leads them to live in a world where they're acting against their own interests and not grasping the richness of human nature and diversity. So, my methodologies in JABS in 2016.
So are you trying to look for ways to get that message across? How are you doing that?
I would like to get some more readers. And I was written about in the Palgrave Handbook of Organization Thinkers. And in there, my methodology and my work is summarized. And I felt very good about being included in that volume.
Well, do you do any public speaking? Do you go to different organizations and speak, or
Well,
is that not a?
Now I stick to teaching and writing. I have not been consulting in the last year, and this may be my last public speech.
Oh, no, that can't be.
One of my students, Beverly Kay, is always recruiting me, and
right.
And she is not quite as advanced chronologically as we are, but she's up there with us, and she's speaking all the time. This lady is a dynamo. She's got so much wonderful, good energy.
Oh, good for her. Well, okay, we only it's supposed to be 40 minutes long. And what would be your wish, or in appreciative inquiry language, your high dream for NTL and the future of NTL?
Well, I wish that let me tell you what's wrong, what I see is wrong with the Democratic Party these days. And I think it's a similar dynamic that I sense. Haven't been involved enough to know for sure, or to have strong feelings. The Democratic Party has a problem. They take on every issue about equity and social justice. And in the process, they miss focusing and staying on one or two themes that could get them more votes, that people could grasp. They're for everything. I think that I sense with NTL is a similar dynamic, that there are some core themes, and yes, we have to be equal on every theme. But when we get but what I've seen are people involved in issues and they lose focus on the big issues. And there's not time to do both. And it becomes a figure ground issue for me. And that there's something about the camaraderie and the values maybe that need to be more assumed with the other issues in R&D, that there is committees that are researching and reporting out about what would be a way to embrace those social fairness, justice, diversity issues as guidelines, while the main caucus, the caucus advances on issues that can better define the Institute.
Okay.
So that's
Such
what
as.
I would wish.
Okay.
But that's my viewpoint. Haven't been involved. Now I feel like an interloper. I'd like to give something as much as I can, and because I receive so very much.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So, well, if I had been a very good interviewer, what would I have asked that I didn't? What do you want to say?
Well, that's something that I would say. Are you sure? Maybe we were separated at birth, Barbara.
Maybe we learned at the
I think that
knees of NTLers.
I thought about this interview, and there were certain things that I did want to say, and I worked hard on leaving a legacy, and when you picked up and said, "Oh, I'd like to read that book," that made me feel very good, because that is what I want. And
well, I would like to read that book.
I'm very proud of what I've learned and been able to put down in writing.
I would.